Hey everybody, Stephen Bogran here from Pro Physique. Today I'm going to talk about my favorite ways to stop snacking.
My name is Steven and this is our video about health and fitness things. And I work for Pro Physique and I am just a guy with a fitness thing for you.
Alright guys, I hope you're all having a great day. I got a question this week and I'm going to go ahead and put it here on the screen. And so Katie asked, could you do a video on how to stop cravings and snacking, please? I'm having a very hard time figuring out how to stay on track. Well, absolutely we can talk about that. And this is definitely going to start in a kind of multitude of places, but let's take it from a step number one on how do we stop snacking, how do we stop those cravings. So there is always going to be this response that we have where we look towards food for feelings if we're really stressed out. And I've talked about this before, and I'm sure I'll talk about this many times again, is that we are emotionally tied into food. We are socially tied into food. It's where we have a lot of family gatherings, social gatherings, and there's just so much involved in that as a whole that it can absolutely make stress a huge trigger point for snacking and overeating. So how do we handle that? Well, the big thing is stress management, which is not an easy fix, and it's not something that's so simple that we're all good at it. Otherwise, we would all be stress management monsters. Bah! Right? We'd all be so good at managing our stress. I do think that it bears mention to really talk about the idea that this stress management, this need to be doing something, whether that's self-care, whether that's yoga, whether that's meditation, green outdoor exercise, as my window's closed, those kinds of things to help with that stress management. Now, we think of stress in this mental and like psychological term, and I think that's fair. That's where a lot of us are probably feeling the most stressed. But also remembering that our workouts, our cardio can also be stress. And so understanding that we also will need to manage those workouts as well. So that number one is stress management. That's the probably best way to stop the overeating, to stop the cravings, and to really help with hitting our macros more consistently. So number one, I find more often than anything else, it's stress eating. And if you're really struggling with that, that's something that like a mental health expert or a therapist can help us to find better coping mechanisms and work through. We just have to understand that that's kind of our go-to, and it may be holding us back in terms of our physique goals, as well as maybe some other things. My number two way to help stop cravings and to help stay on track is to look at your food that you're eating. Oftentimes what we'll do is, because it's IAFYM, because it's flexible dieting, and because frankly we freaking can, is we will eat foods that are going to probably have, we'll say, more caloric density, which means we're going to get more calories for less volume of food. And this is what tends to happen as we eat more processed foods, as we eat more sugars and those kinds of things. And that's not me saying those things are bad. Within moderation, I think they're absolutely fine. However, particularly when we're on a deficit and we're hungry and we're trying to diet and be full, we may want to stray away from those. And I can tell you, I love Pop-Tarts. I love breakfast cereal, Oreos, whatever it might be. Those things are great. However, if I'm dieting and I'm dieting hard, I'm not going to be utilizing very much, if any of those things, at least for a period of time. The important thing there is that I know that they're not off the table forever. They're just off the table for now because I have that goal. And so I will cater my meal choices and my food choices towards lean proteins, voluminous veggies, and making sure that I'm doing the right things to keep my fats in check. Normally if I do those things, I actually can sometimes have a difficult time hitting my fats because I'm just eating so many low-fat food options. And then I maybe need to add a peanut butter or olive oil or something to my food to help actually hit my fats. And so the second thing that I think really helps with this overeating and snacking, so we have stress management. This one's huge, right? That's why it's number one. But food choice. eating high volume foods, low calorically dense foods, vegetables, lean proteins, calorie friendly things, those kind of things. And yes, I know the Skinny Cows treat isn't quite the same, but it's still good. And we can still utilize some of those calorie friendly food options as ways to help kind of bridge that gap through that time of dieting. Stress management, food choice, food timing, I think is also a really, really big one. When we have structured, true meals, there's a difference between like physiological like hunger and appetite. But we have this mental association with appetite. I feel hungry because of food timing. We're used to eating at this time. We're in this rhythm. And just like we have a circadian rhythm that sets the tone for a lot of things throughout the day for us, how we set up that food timing also makes a really big difference. And if we're trying to eat 6-7 meals a day, the other thing that happens with that is those meals become very, very small. They're not filling, they're not satiating, they don't ever leave you feeling full. And I think that's a big issue there too. So for a lot of people, I will actually bring back and say, hey, we don't need to have 6 or 7 meals a day. Let's have 3 or 4 meals a day, and let's allow those to have more food so that we actually feel full, so that we actually feel satiated. What this can also do is it can give us more protein. So sometimes if we're maybe not eating as much protein and it's spread out throughout the day, we don't actually get enough in those servings anyways. So it gives us more protein per serving. And remember, protein's a heavier food. It helps us to feel a little bit more satiated, but it also gives us the opportunity to have more volume of food on the other things. So again, we feel better. And I will say that I find that, particularly for me and for a lot of my clients, having those fuller meals and less of them has been a huge benefit for them staying consistent and stable. It also gets you out of the habit of having all of those extra food choices and options in between meals. Because snacking also can be a huge mental thing. We're just used to it. We're used to a couple bites here, a couple sips there, but those calories can really add up. When we take that away and we say we're going to do consistent full meals and that's where our calories are going to come from, it can, one, make it much easier to plan out the day, to prep food and to be ready for the day. But it can also take away a lot of those opportunities for the extra snacksidents, as I like to call them, where we can get in those extra calories. And so having main meals, full meals, and having less of them can sometimes be a really big benefit. It doesn't mean you need to do something like intermittent fasting. You could if you wanted to, and particularly like say you like waking up and you want to push your food off for a while. Because you can get up, you can do some cardio, you can have a cup of coffee, and that you don't get hungry till later in the day. Perfect. If that's what works for you and it helps you to hit your total daily macros, great. However, you could also get up, have a heavy protein meal, go on about your day, as long as you're hunger signaling and you're able to manage that, good. Now, the last thing that I'm going to say, it goes along with meal timing quite well, but it's not quite the same. And this is for those of us who get really busy and we forget to eat. And this is where that snacksidents happen. This is where the overeating can happen quite easily. Because we've gone through so much of our day. We get home and all these other things are gonna have a big impact on it. Like we're stressed out, we had a long day at work. We're going for things that are easier to prepare, which may be, less, more calorically dense, and so now we're setting ourselves up for this easy opportunity to overeat because we have high hunger signaling, high stress, we've had low food in throughout the rest of the day. Boom, it's really easy to overeat. And so my last one is don't go all day without eating. So if you're doing intermittent fasting, that might be the approach you want to take. But for most people, I find it puts us in this position to overeat so very easily. Again, we're stressed out, we're hungry, it's been a long day, and we probably don't want to necessarily do a bunch in terms of making dinner. We want it to be easy, we want to sit down, we want to get off our feet, and we want to just relax a little bit. So having normal scheduled meals throughout the day, not only on our last one, helps us in terms of, okay, cool, we're gonna actually feel full. It can help us because we're not going into a final meal super crazy hungry. Now, I hope that helps. Those are some of my big tips. I don't want to overcomplicate it too much for y'all. I'll leave it there. Have a great day, everyone.